Hi again then guys, and welcome to another special collaboration video here on the channel between myself and one of the members of the Team HSG Patreon crew, this time a brand new co-creator on the channel, Ness in Pajamas, who regardless of the Patreon page has actually just been a great supporter of the channel for quite some time anyway. So show him some love down in the comments, and for those who are new to this kind of collab video, you can check out the playlist at the end to see the other ones that we've done to give you a vibe of the series, and if working with me in a literal basis on the channel each month is something that appeals to you, I would recommend clicking the link below and going to check out those perks. And of course this video has a lot of significance to the channel because it's the very first video from the first Gran Turismo game ever on this channel, so it's kind of a milestone in that regard. But that's enough from me, over to Ness.
Thank you, Mike. Greetings from my bedroom, and welcome to episode 99 of GT Masters, with the very first Gran Turismo 1 review on the channel. And I couldn't think of a better way to get started than with the only real-world race car to not be featured in future games, the Acura, or Honda for the European audience, NSXR LM GT2. Before we get started, however, there are a couple of disclaimers regarding GT1 reviews. First, I've done some research and there are at least 7 cars in the game that are worth reviewing. Most of those cars didn't get carried over to Gran Turismo 2, but there are a select few which did. It's just that how they are represented in that game is completely different to Gran Turismo 1. And although I would love to feature more cars simply for the speciality factor and how much I love them, I also want to abide to the HSG rules of reviewing cars, where generally speaking, with a few exceptions, we always review a car that is the latest incarnations of a series. So unless things change, that is how I'm doing it. Second, the torque figures for pretty much every car in GT1 are way higher than normal. For example, the NSX we are reviewing today has, can't wait for this, 2,646 pound-feet of torque. Yeah, not even close. So keep that in mind when I review those cars in GT1. Now, I find it very interesting that this car didn't make the cut for GT2, as the other 3 real-life based race cars in GT1, the Castrol Supra, Nismo GTR LM, and Viper GTSR, all did make the transition to the second game and are all arguably approximately similar in terms of significance. Because the NSX GT2 was indeed the winner of the GT2 class of the 1995 Le Mans and placed 8th overall. Very impressive indeed. Now, as it turns out, this car was planned to be a racing modification for the road-going NSX in Gran Turismo 2, just like the Nismo GTR LM, but for whatever reasons, it got scrapped. Although the livery of this car did live on in the NSXR LM prototype race car in Gran Turismo 4, so there is that. So what do you get when you decide to purchase this car? Well, it has a 2,977cc engine and it puts out 541 horsepower, which is actually one of the least powerful race cars in the game, assuming racing modifications are factored in. For comparison, the least powerful race car is the Nissan Silvia S14 LM with 536 horsepower, and the most powerful is the Viper GTSR with 680. That's not too great for the NSX, and to be honest, neither is the weight, 1,049 kilograms, which does sound good until you realize most of the lightest cars in Gran Turismo 1 weigh less than a ton. And the combination of both the power and weight give the NSX GT2 a horsepower per ton of 516. As I said earlier, the torque is insanely high on this car, 2,646 pound-feet of torque. But unsurprisingly for a Honda, compared to the other race cars, it isn't that high. So right off the bat, it seems like just an average pickup race car, and when you factor in the NSX's infamy as a race car for being too twitchy in almost every incarnation of Gran Turismo, it can seem like only a novelty choice for being in just one game. Plus, it ties 5 other cars in GT1 as the most expensive car in the game at 500,000 credits. Which certainly sounds like a far cry compared to Gran Turismo games now, but the fact you have also 5 other racing options does give it some steep competition. However, this car has a very impressive quality that it shares with the road-going NSX, and that is what it can do goes way beyond what its specs offer. With stock transmission, the NSX can go from 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, 0 to 400 meters in 9.5, and 0 to 1000 meters in 17.4. And by comparison to other race cars, that is very, very good. With so little power compared to other race cars, it's shocking to see that this can accelerate faster than the TVR Subaru LM, which is on paper better in every significant way. What about the handling though? Because as I just mentioned, the vast majority of NSX race cars are well known in Gran Turismo for being very hard to work with. Alongside the Audi R8 LMS, the handling in most circumstances has a strange tendency where the front wheels feel like they are closer to the driver than their original position, and you have to do lots of tuning to get it under control. There are exceptions of course, including my personal favorite NSX race car, the aforementioned LM prototype, but generally speaking, they are very hard cars to control. And unfortunately, in a game as fast-paced and as drift-happy as Gran Turismo 1, which also does not have the differential settings that was introduced in the sequel, along with traction control and other driving aids, the NSX GT2 is no exception. Here's the thing, I'm very experienced in this game. I love Gran Turismo 1 so much, it's why I wanted to dedicate my Patreon videos to this game. I spent tons of hours just driving most of the cars in the game and getting a good feel for pretty much every race car in the game, except the NSX. Now in this video, you'll notice that I'm driving two NSXs, an orange one and a red one. The main difference is that the red one is tuned to be less slippery and more controllable. But even with that, you can clearly see how much I'm struggling with this car. The single biggest problem is that it can change how much it steers like a switch. There are many times where I only tapped the directional buttons and it steers directly inside the grass. And you can see that it's a big problem on the test course, which is why I wasn't able to improve my top speed that well. Because of this, I have lots of trouble just getting this car in control. I get very scared whenever I approach a corner at high speeds because I don't know if it's going to crash or not. And again, I am experienced with this game. But after putting many hours into the NSX, with or without tuning, I get the best results with it whenever I stick to it for a long time. So that's the biggest piece of advice I would give to anyone who wants to give this car a shot. Dedicate your time understanding how the car handles around corners and you'll be able to beat the AI in career mode pretty easily. Because when mastered, this could become one of the most competitive race cars in the game. It just so happens to also be by far the hardest car in the game to use. Now, I know it sounds like I'm being too harsh on the NSX GT2 in that I don't like this car. Well, it's more of a love-hate type of relationship. On one hand, the fact that Gran Turismo 1 is the only game in the series to feature this car, as well as it being the only unicorn of the game based on a real race car compared to most others which are PD original, does give this car lots of charm. I also like the sound a lot. Gran Turismo 1, although mostly inaccurate in terms of sound, does have this charm of sounding a bit goofy, but in a good way. Although that may be my nostalgia talking, and when I take time to master this car, I can have lots of fun with it. It's just that the first few moments of driving, unfortunately, are some of the most frustrating experiences I have with this game because of how twitchy and weird this car feels. Also, the other Honda race car in GT1, the Del Sol LM Edition, is one of my favorite cars in the game anyway. That car feels so amazing to drive despite having the same engine layout as the NSX, and being one of the very few cars in the game to weigh less than 900 kilos. So for me, I just go for that car instead of the NSX. Now that's not to say that this car isn't worth buying. If you are an NSX fan and you want to buy this car for 500 grand, and you are willing to put the effort into mastering this car, your purchase will likely be worth it. Plus, it's just a nice car to try out, since Gran Turismo 1 is the only game to feature this car, a trait that other cars, such as the Nissan Fairlady Z Concept in GT3, both Ferrari F1 cars in GT5, and a Mercedes CLK GTR race car in Forza Motorsport 1 for the Forza franchise, have in their favor. So overall, the Honda/Acura NSX-R GT2 LM is a good car, a worthy purchase. Just be extra cautious when driving. This is Ness in Pajamas saying, fluffy pillows.
And that is it for this particular car review, so thanks for that, Ness. I think you did a great job, especially for your first collab, and for those of you who are interested in working with me, as I said in these collab videos, click that link down below, check out the tiers, there are a ton of different perks available, and if you have a great idea that you would like to see on the channel in collaboration with me, you might want to give it a look. But that's it for this installment, of course. We will see you guys next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.